Military-grade Israeli spyware was used to hack the cell phones of journalists and activists worldwide, including individuals close to slain Saudi journalist Jamal Khashoggi. This is according to a sweeping global report with the Washington Post and 16 other media partners known as the Pegasus Project.
Their investigation found that the phones appeared on a list of more than 50,000 numbers that are focused in countries known to engage in surveillance of their citizens and also known to have been clients of the Israeli firm NSO Group. The act of targeting journalists and activists appears to violate NSO's policy of selling its Pegasus spyware only for use in surveilling terrorists and major criminals. Okay, so NSO's policy is NSO's policy. Do you think NSO has incentives to follow its policy, and do you think that's likely they did in this case?
No, definitely not.
Yeah.
It's been reported in the past that NSO Group and other Israeli spyware firms have been engaged by autocratic governments to spy on journalists and spy on activists. So, this is more confirmation of what we already knew. In fact, after I did some reporting on the UAE ambassador to the United States here, a source, a very well-placed source who would know, warned me that the UAE had contracted with the NSO Group to hack me.
Yeah.
And they specifically named that NSO Group. And so they did not get back to me and say that, well, NSO said their policy is that they don't hack journalists even if a paying client wants it done. And in fact, shortly after the source told me that, I did notice some attempts at different cyber penetrations. So this is something that they should do. And I think that the U.S. government, if they want to take this seriously, ought to consider sanctions of any cyber companies that are selling this type of product.
NSO's defense, I think, is really telling, because they're saying, listen, it's just our software. We're not controlling how it's used by these countries. We've looked into how it was used, but they're using it at their own discretion in accordance with our policies. And it's like, really?
No, that's not right, because okay. It is plausible that some of the software and the easiest to use elements of it could get out and then could be used by some of these governments without NSO Group's knowledge. But generally, this is a collaboration.
Yeah.
You're hiring this firm to do something, and the government is telling NSO Group, this is the list of people that we want information on.
And NSO is saying they looked into these allegations and debunked them, essentially, so that it's all just, it's all just speculation, et cetera, et cetera. And the thing that's important is that without the reporting here that you've done, that the Washington Post did, we have no idea what the hell's going on, because this isn't coming from the government. This is coming from a private company.
Right. And the proliferation of these types of firms, and this is one of Israel's real growth industries, is in this cyber warfare area, along with mercenaries, whether they're coming out of the United States, Colombia, or elsewhere, is really privatizing a lot of the state functions.
Absolutely.
That could contribute to a serious destabilization when combined with this massive amount of inequality. Because yes, we know that at this point that these were mostly governments that were hiring NSO Group. NSO Group can also do work for oligarchs. Mm-hmm. And so an oligarch now can have some of the most sophisticated surveillance and cyber hacking technology out there, as well as well-trained mercenaries. That's a government.
I'm so glad you brought it up, because that's exactly what I was going to say next, is it is privatizing these weapons of war, and it's doing it in this new technological atmosphere where you can still get away with things, because in a software like the one that NSO sells, it's fairly new. Our laws haven't necessarily kept pace with the technology. And I don't know what you do about it in these cases. Obviously it's an area, and the Washington Post report is comprehensive. And so obviously it's an area where lawmakers are going to start asking people in government to look closer at these things. But the mercenary point, I think, is an incredibly important one. We've been talking about this for the last week or so when it comes to the mercenaries that were trained in the United States and ended up in Haiti at Jovenel Moïse's residence. This this is something that is becoming a bigger and bigger problem. It's been a problem for a long time, but when you combine the mercenaries with the software, like you said, we have a government.
Right, and so the governments around the world took about 2 or 3 decades to finally start to get together to combat the tax avoidance regimes that were, using the Cayman Islands and Ireland and Delaware and all these different tax shelters to hide money from governments. A real challenge by oligarchs to the idea of government, the idea of a public sector. I think they have to move much more quickly on these threats than they did on that, because now they've unleashed this massive inequality. They've unleashed it into an eco-catastrophe, and if you allow these private concentrated sources of power to also have all the functions of a government, good luck putting that back in the bottle. Yeah,
good luck putting it back in the bottle. And to the point about, well, you have a government, if you combine this thing and this thing, it's like, well, you have a government that is completely unaccountable to anybody, to any voters, to anybody. It's just an unaccountable, different arm of the state, but it has no mechanisms of accountability. It will be interesting to see if they do attack this at a faster pace than they did the tax shelters, because in that case, it's like, oh my God, the incentives are completely stacked against pursuing anything in that avenue. But in this avenue, they're going to get swept up in the surveillance, and they know it. They will absolutely be swept up in the surveillance. They will absolutely be targeted, especially in some of these less stable countries like Haiti. People are going to be targeted by the mercenaries. And so are the incentives such that there will be faster action? The more reporting we have on this, the more information we have on it. I have no idea.
Right. And NSO Group also needs to answer very directly for what their involvement was in surveillance and hacking of Jamal Khashoggi and people around him.
His wife, correct?
Right, and this is what the reporting is saying, and we know that Saudi Arabia and the UAE were both interested in. We know that Saudi Arabia and MBS ordered this execution. What did NSO Group know about what the project was? They obviously knew he was a journalist and did it anyway.
Yeah. Massive world powers, basically, with these in their hands. Whether they're countries or oligarchs, it's incredibly troubling.
Indeed. And so tomorrow on Rising, we'll have another great show for you. Later today, what do voters think it means to be woke? We will find out.
Imagine a pollster calling you and asking, Ryan Grim, are you woke?
I'm awake. You just called me.
Well, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you never miss any of our new content. We'll see you tomorrow. Have a great Monday afternoon.
See you then.